Okay, if I can get your attention, I think we need to get started. We'll start the meeting, we just want to have this town hall meeting to kind of get feedback from the public and us to give you the information that we have on the different projects. We're going to give you facts. We're not going to give you opinions. We just want to get everything out there so you can give us your feedback. Okay, so that being said, Gail, you want to start?
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Gail Cook. I'm the city manager. Present with us tonight, as you can see, we've got tables around the room, and we'll have available our police chief, Rolf Nelson, in the back. Nick Kondeski, next to him, is our floodplain administrator. We have representatives, Elizabeth, your last name. Santiago. And we've got Kim Boniface. And from our finance team in the very back, we have Mike Gibbs. We have Brian Craig, the Assistant Director of Public Works and also the city engineer. Over here in the left-hand corner, we have Sean Landis, which is our Assistant City Manager and also the Director over Community Development. And we've got Kevin Paget, Director of Public Works. So we prepared a brief 15-minute presentation that will go over the projects and some of the questions that council's deliberating right now. This has not gone on to a ballot. They would be looking at making that decision at the 1st of February. This meeting is just to give you some facts on the project. At the end of the presentation, we'll open up a question and answer, and then we'll turn you out to go to the different information stations to see if you have any information that our staff can be able to provide for you. At the end of that, we'll also provide some of the information as far as how to get additional feedback to the city that will then in turn get back to city council as they're trying to make these decisions. So the two projects are potential propositions. Again, we have no action on these items as of to date. We have the new police station, and what we'll be talking about tonight is two potential sites, a new municipal pool, and there's 3 potential designs that have been designed out and conceptualized. Again, we have information stations. We also have tours available, so the police chief and his staff will be available after this presentation. If you would like to move back to his table, they'll take you on a tour if you've not had the opportunity to do that. And then, again, our communications and feedback in this will have a QR code, and then we'll also direct you over to our website. In addition to, in the very back, you will see paper comment cards if you want to fill those out and leave them for staff. So the police station, we'll start with that. I'll ask Chief Nelson to come up, and we're just going to talk briefly about some of the challenges that created this project. And this has been going on for a couple of different administrations. So,
good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming this evening. Just a few things about the department, and I'll make this brief because, as City Manager indicated, we have a table set up that we can answer more down in the weeds questions, as well as a tour of the police department. I've got staff over there, so you can walk through the PD after we're done and look at whatever you want to look at, so you can actually see it with your own eyes. The pictures up on the screen depict our evidence and property room. The pictures don't do it justice, and I would encourage you to go back there and see it this evening. It's very tight. A lot of the evidence is mandated that we keep it for 100 years in some cases. We're bound by law and the open cases as to when we can get rid of that evidence. So some of it is going to stay for a very long time. Next slide. Our jail, I'm not faulting the design when it was made, but 30 years ago, things have changed, right? The standards have changed. Doors to jail cells don't open in anymore. They open out or they slide. That creates a hazard for the prisoners that are inside our jail. The gun lockers are located inside the jail. We don't use those. We've come up with another alternative, but it's just a Band-Aid to alleviate this problem. There's also the booking area, which is to the right of that picture, to the extreme right, that it depicts the booking area, which there's no separation really between the person being booked and the officer booking them, which creates a safety hazard for the officer. Next. Our locker rooms are very small. That is the entire locker room, that blue picture to the left, or the blue lockers to the left. The dispatch area has 2 consoles. Oftentimes we have one go down for one reason or another. Technology being what it is, it needs updates, or things just kind of glitch out sometimes, so we have to restart. Well, that takes us down to 1 console, and if we're in an emergency, that's only 1 dispatcher that can work at a time until we get that second console back up. So ideally, I would like to have 4. That way, in case of a really big emergency, we could have more than enough staff in there, and if a console went down, it wouldn't interrupt operations. And then to the far right, we have about 47 staff, and we've got 1 male shower, 1 female shower. And that's, if we're in an emergency, like daily operations, not that big of a deal. If we're in an emergency, that's 47 people using 2 showers. So it creates a bit of a logistical challenge. And this picture depicts our kitchen/break area. As you'll see, and again, you'll see it if you do the PD tour, it's probably about a 10 by 20 room, and it connects the jail, the dispatch center, the front lobby, and it's right around the corner from our interview room, which we have to run everyone out of the kitchen or the break area if we're in an interview, because you can hear everything. It's recorded in the interview room, so that presents a challenge as well. Most of these things we work around, but it's less than ideal.
all right, thank you. Moving on, mentioned that there's 2 sites. This one on the far left, indicated as number 1, is the Lakeside area, and on number 2 is across from McDonald's at Meyer and 146. The Lakeside, or Site 1 that we'll talk about, is also located near Lighthouse Daycare. This particular site has areas that are in the flood zone. Again, we've got our floodplain administrator available, so they can go into a little bit more detail on this site and the floodplains and the elevations at that property. This property drainage deposits into Lakeside. Lakeside was oversized for drainage, so this property would not need any detention if a building is put there. It is already owned by the city, and it's currently a zone commercial and overlay district. Looking at it as far as with chief and police department, this site was centrally located, so there was no concern there. This is the preliminary site plans. We've been working with an architect for some time now, and this is a new project for just the police department only. This depicts the potential layout at the lakeside location and would empty here into lakeside. There's provisions for a golf cart path to be reconstructed on a concrete path that would hug the north side of the property and then go back to where the parents typically drop off the kids back here. They would be secured and surrounded here by a security fence and secured parking for the police officers' personal vehicles and the patrol vehicles. And then we've got a number of different offices that we currently do not have that would provide for current and future growth. Again, I encourage you to stop by the police department table, and if you have any specific questions on design, we'll be happy to kind of get in more detail on that. Site 2, this is the East Meyer project. And our site, this at the bottom is, you can see there's one little niche here. So there's actually 2 property owners. We're showing that the proposed site, the architect is able to fit the proposed building on the outlined here in yellow. So there's space there. This site is not in a substantial flood area. It is also centrally located. This one is currently not owned by the city, and this one will need some detention, so there will be a little added cost for detention. This is a potential site layout for site number 2, kind of carving out the second owner. We've got enough space again to put it on the L-shaped property that's at that corner, and until we do a little bit further exploration, we don't show the detention area on this design. So our estimated cost at this point in the project planning, we have gone down with police station only to $15 million. Site 1, again, has on land cost no additional. We have an estimated cost at this point of around $3 million, and that would take into account probable land cost and probable detention cost. This is another breakout of building only to total project cost and how the $15 million is broke up and the additional $3 million. And then finally, just a quick snapshot of how this would look if it goes to being approved to be put on the bond election or a May election. We would be looking at calling an election again at the beginning of February. Election would take place in May of 25. In July of 2025, we would have the actual bond sale, and the closing would wrap up somewhere in August or September. We would then go into full design, which would take 9 to 10 months, and the bid process would hopefully take place sometime in May of 2026. And then you've got another year of construction. So this is just giving you a timeline of a typical project of this scale and how long it would take to actually construct. At this time, we'll move to the second project, which is the municipal city pool. This is Brian Craig, and I'll let him go over that project.
These first few slides are going to show the existing pool, or the existing site as it is today. The slide feature had to be removed. It was end of life. The pool needs major repairs. Our last 2002 report came up with the cost of around $800,000 to make repairs to the pool to bring it up to code. It no longer meets code. These are more pictures of the existing pool. So the 3 proposals, we have a bare minimum, and they each build upon one another, A, B, and C. The first one, A, is a 6-lane, 25-yard lap pool. Option B builds on that. It adds a children's pool with a walk-in kind of beach area and a play structure. And then the third option is similar to option B, but just bigger, larger area, more beach area.
This project, as we have taken it on, has a challenge. So the 2 structures, if you're familiar with the municipal pool, have 2 approximately 1960 structures. The one on the right at the first floor houses the public restroom facility. Being that it's in a flood zone, FEMA requires, if it's substantially improved, that we would have to raise that. So that would be a substantial cost and kind of awkward for having a restroom that's going to have to be up in the air. So at this point, we are looking with an architect to possibly just do a facade concept in the front that would give a more aesthetically approving entrance into the facility if several $1 million is made to improvements behind the fence. The restroom would then be minorly updated as well as the buildings to give a fresh approach to the whole building. This is just a recap of the 3 options that Brian went over. These are estimated costs at this point based on the layouts that he discussed. So option A for the lap pool only is around $3 million. Option B is $4 million, and option C is approximately $5 million. At this time, we'll invite our Director of Finance, Mike Gibbs, up to the podium, and we will kind of end about the financing of these projects and what that potentially looks at for you as a taxpayer.
Thank you, Gail. Okay, what we have here is essentially a breakdown of what the cost increase for each debt scenario, if it was approved, would cost each homeowner, property owner, based on a $300,000 home with a 20% homestead exemption. And it comes out to, as you can see, $15,097 annually. Going down the line to the $3 million, you're looking at $33.83 annually. That's an increase on average of what you would pay if the citizens were to elect to move forward with these bond scenarios. I have set up in the back, if you want to know specifically what the impact would be, if you know the taxable value of your home, we can go over that and additional debt questions that y'all may have that the city's currently under.
Thank you, Mike. That concludes our presentation. If you've got your phones available, this is a QR code that will take you directly to the website as far as doing electronic feedback. Again, we've got paper and pens in the back if you choose to do a written comment. And at this time, we will open it up to question and answer. So if you have a question, we will try to answer it for you this evening or get you an answer. If you will go up to the podium just so that we can hear you. Again, this is not a formal meeting. If you don't care to give us your name and address, you don't need to, but if you want to, that's fine too. So,
Hey, Gail, before you do that, can you just tell the citizens why we can't remodel the current police station and we have to find a new location? Because I don't think we talked about that.
So the part of the project coming up on a capital improvement discussion from staff was this is in a floodplain. We had experience during Hurricane Ike, some of the challenges of having a storm surge wipe in and having a first responder type service on the first floor. So to remodel our footprint is a challenge. So when we were starting to look at a capital project, back in the 80s and 90s when this whole area was kind of getting planned out, there was thoughts of doing other things on the site. However, if you're going to elevate, we have some challenges with design. If we have a storm surge event like we did with Ike where you couldn't get back in, our first responders were not able to get back to home base. All our electronics, our 911, everything was gone. Some of our vehicles were gone. So we had to wait for the water to subside. So the challenge was, do you rebuild and invest with taxpayer money back in a zone like this that you're going to have first responders not being able to respond, even if we built in the air? So that was the main driver to getting out of the flood zone and looking for properties that were more resilient for a coastal community.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Nielsen. Thank you so much for your time. I live in the Seabrook Island neighborhood, and I'm just here to talk about the proposed police station for the Lakeside site, Site 1, just give you some short feedback about that. Two of my children go to Ed White. They're in second grade and first grade, and a lot of times people in the Seabrook Island and Lake Point Forest neighborhoods and the group of houses off of Wild Oak Forest, which is the street kind of across the street from the Seabrook Methodist Church. A lot of times we'll take our kids to school. Some people use a golf cart. I personally will go and park at the church and then walk my kids on the path to school. And during dismissal, there's a larger amount of kids who take the path via bike, walking by themselves, or with a parent, or taking a golf cart. So usually at dismissal, there's anywhere from 50, 75, possibly 100 kids that are walking from Ed White across that field and down the path to Lakeside to meet their parents or to walk on home to their houses. So my concern with that location, I know you had a golf cart path going around behind the police station, and presumably you could walk on that as well. Although there's some concerns with having a big police station that close to our school, because I know you had kind of Stanley Avenue. That's the driveway going right up to Ed White. So there's also a school right across from Ed White. Still, I know Ed White and the school across from it, which used to be Odyssey Academy. Now it's a private Christian school that it's opening up. I know those are in El Lago, but a lot of obviously Seabrook residents do have their kids go there because that's where we're zoned. And a lot of Lake Cove kids are transferred into Ed White too, so a lot of them park at that church parking lot and walk as well. So I'm just worried about a police station being there with the traffic. If someone gets a call and they have to rush out of the police station, you know, there could be little kids around. It's a bit of a bad place, I think, to put a police station. And I'm also speaking on behalf of a lot of other mothers and fathers in the Lake Point Forest and Seabrook Island neighborhood who've kind of echoed that. I do believe that area is also a floodplain. I could be wrong about that, but you probably, you know, will have less hurricane exposure perhaps compared to old Seabrook. But that being said, obviously it's great for the police to have a new facility, and I'm not against that at all. It's just that particular location. The only other thing I would like to say is in case there are people being transported to and from the jail, that's just a little concerning with these little kids all around. There's, you know, the Lighthouse Daycare is right over there, Ed White, and then a new Christian academy. So it's a lot of young children, 5th grade and under, who might be seeing that as it's happening. And I do know the current police station's close to Bay Elementary, but I believe that decision to put it there was made a long time ago. So it might be nice to just think about the decision to put it near these schools going forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Cindy Perkins, and I'm on the board for the Seabrook Stingrays. So I'm representing them tonight, and I really appreciated the timeline you presented with the police station, and I was wondering if there was a similar timeline yet for the swimming pool, because in the meantime, last summer we had to rent a pool 15 minutes from Seabrook just to keep our swim team viable, and this year we're in the same situation.
We'd have to get with our architects, and we do have a representative from our company tonight, but this project's a lot smaller than our police station would be, so
Sure.
wouldn't be anywhere close to that length of a time, but let us work on that, and we can definitely get you a more tightened deadline if that were passed.
Would the swimming pool be on the same bond February 4th schedule? I'm sorry?
There's 2 bonds.
There's 2 bonds. So what would the swimming pool bond
It would be in May.
in May? Okay, thank you.
So you don't have an answer to that question? Do you have the answer? It'd be nice if everyone could hear an answer, not just.
Yeah, so
Just
two
for
bucks, depending on the design and the route the city chooses, we're looking at 36 to 40 weeks for the pool to be built, not speaking about the process before everything be smooth, so the financial, the
So
process, things like that.
go time, once we have an approval for any design, it's a minimum of 36 weeks.
Roughly, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Anyone else?
I have a lot of questions, but I'll try and keep it simple. So I had a question on the pool itself. This is about separating fact from fiction, so I'm asking you guys directly. I had understood several years ago that there was an opportunity to fix the pool compared to what we are now, where we have to completely tear it out. Is that true?
We have a report. Go ahead, Gail.
I just need a yes or no, and then I can get the details from you. I'll keep it.
We do. Brian's got a copy of the report. So when the slide was, the metals on the pool are on the slide disintegrated, basically. So when we did the slide inspection a couple of years ago that started with the demo, and then we had an issue at the pool, and when we had a full assessment of the pool done, that's when we discovered all of our underground pipe work. We had some significant issues. That's the $800,000 in the report that we've got available tonight for you.
As far as the pool too, I'm looking at rate of return. So you've talked about the swim teams and whatnot. Are they going to be paying any portion of this in swim dues? Since all I'm hearing is an Olympic swimming pool for a swim team, whereas we have 13,000 other people. How's that being attributed to?
The pool is, the lap pool is the same size, correct? Okay.
It is staying the same size?
Same size.
Okay. But is there any funds going towards that other than taxpayers' money?
No, currently, we do not charge the stingrays at this point, and we have not had any discussions of changing that moving forward.
Do you charge the populace going in? I've actually never been to the swim.
There is a general admission, and then there's also season passes that residents can get.
Okay, so we charge the populace, but not the swim teams. Okay. Is that insured?
Insured, the pool?
You're letting the swim teams use it. Do they provide insurance on top?
Swim team has our independent insurance, yes.
Okay. All right, that's all I have on the pool. On the police station, I'm a commercial, I'm Josh Pearl, I'm at 650 North Flamingo Drive, sorry. I'm a commercial lender by trade. I look at deals all the time in order to fund things. So what I look at when I look at a deal to be funded is, and I'll even add into that ethically, like what have they done to earn it if we're talking about a city, but how are they gonna pay for it? What's the trends within the city? So is there anyone that has, I would hope that you guys would have this number kind of close, at least a rough. What was the net income for the city last year compared to this year, or the year before compared to 2023? Do we have that?
On general fund,
Yeah.
I do not. I don't know if Mike's.
A downward trend and an upward trend?
We usually have a bit of an upward trend. I don't know what that percentage is. I'd have to get that for you.
Okay, I can come get that later. I'm looking also at, when I talked about earning it, just a couple of the cities around here, this is violent crime per 1,000 people, just a standard. And I could probably look at the same, and the trends would be probably close for other types of crimes. But League City is 1.39. Seabrook is 4.5. National, I don't have the national, sorry. Kima's 2.35. LaPorte is 2.57. And Webster is 3.1. So we're kind of high. So I would ask where's the police chief? What to you, I mean, this is a perk to me, and obviously you guys probably need some stuff because, it's been lackluster for a number of years, but what is the biggest thing keeping you back from enforcing crime? Because at the end of the day, a police station and police are for fighting crime. So what would you say is the biggest need you need besides space in a building to enforce crime? Because I'm gonna touch to what I think your answer is gonna be.
Well, there's a number of things that drive that. Transitory traffic in our city, anything that happens associated with that, if it's in our city limits, it gets counted in our stats. Whether they really did anything here or not, we still have to count it. So that's one driver. Another driver is just the way the crooks.
Again, I'm sorry to interrupt you, because I know that everyone wants to speak too. So I want to know what is the single thing that will assist you, since we're at 4.5, and Kima also has a transitory thing too, and they got a lot more people coming through Kima than we do. So what helps you specifically for Seabrook enforce crime? If we're going to invest $15 million, just to give you another 15 to 17 million, it was the top number, I believe. 18, sorry. Dallas is new, and granted Dallas has multiple police stations, but their main headquarters is going to be produced between 15 to 17 million. Dallas is considerably larger than us, ergo why they probably have multiple police stations. So I'm just wondering how we get to 15 to 18 million on a Seabrook one in comparison. But so if that's the case, again, you got to earn it. So what do you think is the biggest thing keeping Seabrook Police, and I'm on y'all's side, from doing your job here, and it's not a police station? So what is it?
Well, we are doing our job, but the
Yes, you
biggest
are.
driver that would help us is time. And time always attributes to efficiency. So the less efficient we are, the more time everything takes. So I would say time. If you're
Time.
if you like it boiled down to one thing, that's it, time.
Okay. I don't know if many people know this too, but and before I get into it, I'm pretty sure it's the same. Unfortunately, I have been to a jail here. South Shore, whoever's across from Home Depot got me for some silly stuff and ended up dismissing it. But we don't have an actual jail here that we house, correct? We generally bring them to Webster.
No,
We actually have a jail here,
it's a holding facility.
not a prosecutorial. We don't prosecute here, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Anyone that we arrest for things other than municipal reasons, like citations or municipal warrants, they're transferred to Harris County Jail as soon as the charge is accepted in Harris County.
Correct. And I'll share a quick story. I'm part of Seascape. I used to be part of the HOA, and we had a number of people always coming to our pier, which is an insurance issue. And I remember I was gone, and my wife had gone down to the park, and there was, of course, people on the pier. And the pier wasn't even done being built, so it was a huge insurance liability for us. We called Seabrook, and y'all are awesome. They always show up. So, again, I'm for Seabrook Police. I think your guys' hands are severely tied. I came and talked to the sergeant at that time, and I can't remember his name, but we got into why trespassing can't be enforced. And he said, well, honestly, our CTW system may not even work. I said, well, that's not good. He goes, well, beyond that, he goes, I just had a case brought to Harris County, and the DAs turned it down. It was a matter of 3 individuals with guns had robbed a store. This was a couple of years ago, and they had dismissed it. And so I would say that would probably be one of your biggest things is enforcing crime in this city. Is there anything you guys are doing to be able to combat that, considering most of your stuff is thrown to the DAs there and it's at a whim and you guys don't even know which DA is doing it?
There's a lot of factors that play into that.
Excuse me, can you come to the mic because no one can hear?
There's a lot of factors that play into the charging of people and how it's handled either at the district attorney's office or in the criminal courts. And we enforce, make the arrest, and then we refer it to the district attorney's office. The district attorney's office prosecutes it, and the courts hear that case, and the juries decide.
That's if it gets to a jury, correct?
Yeah, but that's out of our hands.
Is there anything you foresee with this $15 to $18 million place that's going to assist that? I know the answer, but.
I'm not sure if it would. I mean, again, time is our enemy, and if we have more time, then I would think that we could maybe, we're speaking in hypotheticals, like why these cases turn out the way they do. That could help us collect more evidence if we were able to respond, get there quicker, collect evidence sooner, things like that.
Okay, if we have statistics on that, as far as how many cases they submit to the Harris County DA that then get dismissed, I would love to see that number if that's possible to get as well.
I can get that. Yes.
Okay. Because that would tell us a big issue too. That was it. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not in favor of 15 to 18 million. I want to support these guys, but I think there's other alternatives besides 15 to 18 million when Dallas is building one for 17. So.
Okay, I'm going to try to manage 2 things at once. I have a few notes. I took a tour of the police station. So here's some of my notes I made about it. The evidence storage is severely inadequate. Space is requiring immediate attention, even before considering a new police station, in my opinion. Oh, am I not close enough? Okay, there we go. Is that better? Yeah. Okay. Okay, do you want me to repeat that? Okay. Firearm lockup. It's outdated, non-functional, also needing immediate attention. The cell doors open the wrong way, which could pose a safety risk. While it's not an immediate need, it is a necessary fix. Let's see. The work and locker room space. It's very tight conditions for the officers and office staff, especially male officers who need locker shower space. Okay, displacement. Displacement during construction. Any plan involving demolition and rebuilding must consider how to avoid disrupting police operations. Inadequate in, the jail is inadequate in size, or it's adequate in size and functional, but updates are necessary. Okay, broader concerns and suggestions. The cost, $15 million is substantial expense, especially given the perceived fiscal mismanagement. Public opinion on the location. Strong resistance to the proposed lakeside location. Alternative locations near the fire department or animal shelter or any city-owned spaces seem more palatable and practical. Let's see. We could build above the existing parking to save on costs and avoid displacement while maximizing city-owned land usage. Citizens feel unheard, though the upcoming town halls are a step in the right direction. And then that's pretty much all my notes on that. But I had a question. The lakeside location is in a flood zone. So why would we, if the problem is that this is a flood zone and the problem started in 2008, or that is the problem, why would we even propose at all to build in another flood zone?
I'm going to ask Nick or Sean to step up on that
Okay.
one.
That's my only question, so you can have the podium, because my child's ready to wiggle.
The proposed lakeside location is minimally in the floodplain, and with the development of the new facility, we would be able to petition for a letter of map amendment to take that facility out of the flood zone. So we would be protecting that facility in reducing the flood risk there.
If we take that out of the flood zone, would that mean everything around it would become out of the flood zone as well?
No, it's only where the development is happening. So that would be included in part of the existing proposed cost.
Anyone else?
Hi. Okay, so my question is about the second proposed location, because the city doesn't own it. So who has actually reached out and talked to the owners and to make sure they're actually willing to sell? Because otherwise, why are we proposing this as an option?
I have reached out to the owners. They are amenable to negotiating with the city if we wanted to pick up the property.
But they didn't say they're willing to sell for sure.
Yes, they are willing to sell.
At what price?
They are right now listing it for $2.7 million.
So they said they would sell at $2.7 million to the city.
Until we get a
I just heard
contract, yeah.
differently from people
This was talking directly with their broker.
recently.
Yes.
Okay. To touch back on the pool, he had brought up the pool and how there was a time where an $800,000 repair would have brought it up to code, but now we're looking at a $3.25 million price tag. So I want to know who made that decision not to repair for $800,000. The council. Okay, did we all agree that was a good choice, or?
It wasn't just, there were so many plumbing, all the plumbing was completely, needed to be re-gutted, so it was, you were just.
So it wasn't 800,000?
That was the estimate, right?
So $800,000 was done by a pool assessment, and it's all underground work.
Sure.
And it would be retrofitting the piping system to bring everything up to code.
Okay.
So if you've gone out there where the pools come down, all the decking would just stay the same. So it's a mismatched decking. It wouldn't touch any of the plaster in the walls. None of that would be touched. So it'd be $800,000 to do new plumbing.
Just the plumbing.
And retrofits on the warranty, if we do that, they would tell us that it may not last and wouldn't be warranted over 5 to 7 years. So we would invest the $800,000 for a 5 to 7 year.
So the choice was to leave it and then just redo the whole thing eventually. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just to elaborate on the explanation of removal of the site from the flood zone, currently the elevation or the base flood elevation for that site, the projected flood level is at approximately 13 feet above mean sea level. The site itself is already at 12. Where we're seeing that flood zone is approximately 11 and a half to 12 foot. So with the filling and leveling of the site, the building would be constructed and the area right around it would have to be constructed at a minimum 14.5 feet. So once all that work is done, we would be able to show those elevations back to FEMA and we would be granted a letter of map amendment, essentially removing the site from the flood zone.
Since you're already there,
Yes.
what's the current level right now where we're at, where we all sit?
Where we sit. So the base flood elevation here is
Base flood elevation doesn't change where you're sitting. Where we're sitting now, what's our actual elevation?
for this building, for this floor, it's at approximately 12 and a half feet, I believe.
So we're talking about, okay.
But the flood zone itself throughout the city, those base flood elevations where we're projecting what the height of that flood water is varies throughout the entire city because of topography.
So, but, I don't want to not be able to, can everybody hear me? Yeah.
Is there another mic we can pull over there?
Mic for recordings, sorry about that. Since you're right here, we can just go back and forth, it'd be easier then. So, we're saying right here at this floor where we're at is 12 and a half feet. And we're talking about turning around and going over there for an additional 2 feet. What was how much water was in this location during Ike? 3 feet? I was told 18 inches. I mean, I know we had to cut the walls 3 or 4 feet, that's normal. So how much water was in the city hall?
It was between 18 inches and 3 feet.
Okay, so between 18 inches and 3 feet. So we're literally talking about we're going to spend somewhere between 15 and 18 million dollars to potentially stop from 6 inches. When Ike occurred in this location, it was like the most catastrophic thing that this area had seen since the 1900 storm. So we're talking about literally 106 years, 108 years, right? When Ike happened in 2008. Okay, so 108 years since we had seen anything like this. Alicia was not flooded. When was the last time? People are shaking their heads. It's a question and answer question. Amelia, how much water was here during Amelia?
This is a velocity zone. That's what that's on top of.
Correct. I understand. And I know how storm surge works. I understand that. But the one thing that while I agree with you 100%, that storm surge is what affected us here at Ike, one of the things that really didn't get looked at until after Harvey occurred was all these places that thought that they'd never be affected by a hurricane that changed every floodplain known to man in the Houston area was another storm. And so I agree, like Chief Nelson and I have talked about this, that our current police station situation is horrible, right? And I'm not saying that this is the place to do it or that there's not another place the city owns or a place the city could purchase that it can be done at. But what I'm saying is we're talking about spending $15 to $18 million of this city money. It's city money that we don't even have. We're going into debt. I want anybody here to raise their hand that runs a not-for-profit company that says, hey, I can take on more debt than we make in a year. And that it makes sense that if we're going to do it, we're going to protect it with somewhere between an additional 6 and 18 inches of elevation after Harvey. During Harvey, I lived on what basically became an island in Pasadena before we moved down here to Seabrook. Everything around me was flooded, just like Seabrook was during Ike. And there was nothing, I was landlocked. There was nothing I could do. There was no police coming to me, no fire coming to me. Everything around me was 3 feet underwater. And that was Harvey in Pasadena. That was just a raining event. So we're trying to protect things, and it's called AE for a reason. It's still a 500-year floodplain. We could do all the dirt work we wanted to do. We live in Seabrook. It's gonna flood. We all here pay for flood insurance. We all here pay for windstorm. We know what it's like. I have friends that live in California that's like, oh my God, I would never live there. I could never deal with hurricanes. I'm like, yeah, but I don't deal with earthquakes. We live here in our town. We love our town despite the problems we deal with. And I just think that there's a better way we could handle it. Now the police, like Bob over there, I can't, God, dear God, Josh, couldn't remember your name. Josh, like Josh said, like, man, I've walked the police station, and anybody here that has not been through our police station needs to go and walk it, because we all need to have a good heart and see what these guys have to go through and understand that, man, it is not the great place that it was in 1996. So they definitely need more than they've got. And as a Seabrook citizen, I would be more than happy to pay for more for our police officers to have a better life. And that just, I don't see any community that wouldn't. That being said, I do have some questions, not about the police station. So the one thing that bothers me about the bond that we're talking about for the Seabrook pool is last night during the Seabrook council meeting, we talked about the three potential layouts. And those three potential layouts were very specific, and they were 2.5 to 3, 3 to 4, and then 3.5 to 5, whatever it was for the three different ones. But then after it was done, Gail, you said that didn't include the facade update. The stuff that was on the spreadsheet that you showed us is the bond that you're requesting, but it didn't actually give us the price for the facade update.
That's correct. So the facade at this point is minimal. I mean, there's a mural on one side and a fence on the other. So right now we're keeping it to under $100,000. So it'd be nominal to add to it. But we were having to do some research on that restroom and the FEMA issue.
So I don't want to bust anybody, and I'm not here to like completely and totally just destroy anybody's life by any means. So I did some research. FEMA thing. And I don't understand why. I'm going to read this real quick. It's the only time that I don't have to have a 4-minute thing, so I have kind of, yay, look at me. Anyhow, so I asked a simple question. Can a city build a bathroom below BFE? Anybody that doesn't know what BFE is? Base flood elevation. The response is, building a bathroom or any structure below base flood elevation, BFE, is generally discouraged and often subject to strict regulations, as it can pose significant flood risk and violate local, state, and federal building codes and floodplain management standards. Cool. We keep saying FEMA. People in council keep saying FEMA. But the NIFP, which is the National Flood Insurance Program, requires that the communities participating in the program to regulate development in flood areas. Structures including bathrooms built below BFE must meet specific design requirements. So that means that you can build a bathroom below BFE. You can also retrofit and update a bathroom below BFE, right?
I'll answer that.
Okay.
Because that's not correct.
That's not correct. The information, so we went through the process of when we were wanting to build a bathroom down on Main Street below base flood. We took the complete design package, we sent it to Region 6 enforcement of FEMA and said, can we build this bathroom below base flood? And they came back with the answer, and I have that, and I can deliver it to you, that
Yes.
states that we cannot build the bathroom below base flood in a V zone, and it only uses you can have within our ordinance are storage access in the building, access to the building in the floodplain.
So here's the reason why I would really like to get a hold of that, and I guarantee you there's at least 4 other people in this audience that have done this exact same research that I have. Is because literally his local and state codes, many cities in Texas or other states have adopted stricter regulations that may entirely prohibit the construction below BFE, even with floodproofing. And so the question is they're saying the federal government, FEMA, does not stop us, that it's us or the county or the state that does that.
Okay. So, but we have reached out to FEMA to get an interpretation of the NFIP, and we did get a response back that we cannot build a bathroom below base flood.
And it's specifically a commercial bathroom
That's correct.
that is not residential? That's correct. Because everything points to that is only for residential.
We got that interpretation directly from FEMA. And
Yeah.
we can provide that documentation.
Absolutely.
We do have
Is
it.
there any way to ever get a variance on that?
Huh?
There's no potential variance for it.
Let me explain.
Sure.
Essentially, like you were saying, you're correct, but for the community's participation, basically our participation in the National Flood Insurance Program is directly tied to our enforcement of these regulations. By granting such a variance, we put in danger our current community's rating and basically the insurance rates that we pay currently for flood insurance. So by granting variances, the NFIP can, through FEMA's oversight, can come back and actually downgrade our enforcement and increase everyone's flood insurance rate.
For the entire city?
For the entire city. That is correct. So essentially, the city of Seabrook, and part of our job, is that we have applied to the community rating system through the NFIP, which grants additional discounts. We're currently a Class 7 city, which grants everyone in the floodplain and outside the floodplain, now that we no longer have preferred risk policies, a 15% discount on their flood insurance rate.
Okay.
Were we to grant some variance of this sort, we could actually lose those discounts, and that would apply to everyone, commercial and residential, across the entire community.
And I can understand that.
Right.
So then, this is one of the only problems that I think that we've had more than anything when it comes to, when we talk about transparency in our city. That answer right there makes sense. I don't think there's anybody here that couldn't understand that. Otherwise, it's just been, it's a FEMA regulation, it's a FEMA regulation, it's a FEMA regulation. And I don't understand it's a FEMA regulation when clearly that's not true. Clearly, the answer is, hey, our city's looking after the citizens, and this is the reason why. And I think citizens can understand that. What they can understand is, it's a FEMA regulation. So, yeah, $100,000 for a facade change is a drop in the bucket if it passes. I don't have any issue with that, and I appreciate you answering that question. Thank you, and thank you for your time.
That was a lot. My name's Jerry Moore, 2709 North Meyer. For $98 extra a year for someone that may be looking at retirement, you know, they're going to take the station and they're going to decommission it in about 3 or 4 years, so I'm going to be out. I would rather buy the police department something to help this man do a better job. For $15 million, you can get 10 new guys for, what, 10 years, something like that? 5 years, anyway. I just found these numbers, and I found them fascinating. I've been looking for this kind of stuff, and I just found it. Thank you very much for providing it for me. 1990, we had 6,600 people-ish. 2025, we got 14,000 people-ish. In 1992, 25 police employees. 2025, 47. If that number was higher, I might get behind the police station. I can get behind more employees and the equipment it takes to support them, but not a building. Thank you very much.
Barry, anyone else?
Yeah, well, I'd like to say a few things. Terry just hit on a couple of things. So one of the deals I looked at was in 1967, when we moved here, there were 6,000 people in Seabrook. In 1996, when this was built, there was 8,500 people in Seabrook. Now there's 13,500. I disagree with your 14, and we're going to fight about it, Terry. So so that's 5,000 more people. And then you have to kind of weigh in a $15 million police station. That's what the people are telling me. So I'm kind of, I support the police. I know people have told me they don't support 15 million. And also what they call in a floodplain. And I know you've answered that, but at the same time, it just seems like we go right back to exactly what we had before. We built one here, we build one there, you're going to have this same issue. I know the land right near North or Meyer at 146, we talked about that. That's not there. Of course, you'd have to buy it. So, you got to look at it that. So there's just some issues that I have. And then I go back to this because I think I notice a lot. When we first started this tonight, we looked at that one, and I think there was a bias there. Just the way I looked at it, it looked like it was like more colorful. You had a more thing like a Mexican restaurant. When you order and you think you're going to get enchiladas, and you only get enchiladas, beans, and rice, but they put all these fancy words in there, and it was a real big paragraph, and then you get enchiladas, beans, and rice. Well, and then the other site was just had a few things next to it. So it was like, hey, we're trying to sell you this, but here's this too. And, people noticed that. And I noticed it. So just little things like that kind of bother me. But anyway, LaPorte has a bathroom at Sylvan Beach that's at base flood level, and they have what they call an actuator pump or something like that. They built it. Other cities around have bathrooms that are recently built at that level. So I keep hearing this, and I've heard this before, that, we're getting, a discount on our insurance, but how are they building it? Are they losing theirs? Are they losing their insurance? I've actually talked to them. They said they're not. So I've talked to all these cities that have these bathrooms at sea level, and they've done it. So I just didn't understand why we couldn't do it. But that seems to, we still keep going back. And I know you say you have the letter and it's saving us 15%, but I don't know how these other cities do it. So I'm trying to figure that one out. And then I've also heard this. If you're not for the new police station, you're not for the police. But I think everybody gets up here and says, no, we're for the police. We're just not for a $15 million deal. And, I don't think that's fair to then put the people, the citizens, into that position of, well, I have to go and say that. Well, of course people support police in this town. I know what kind of town this is. It's a pretty conservative town. And of course they want police. They need the police. But at the same time, they're like going, wait, 15 million. And then I think your other biggest thing, it's a timing factor. We're still technically in a recession from COVID and everything else, and what some people perceive to be a bad administration for the last 4 years. Now you might be going into a more positive one, But right now, you're still there. You know, people aren't making a ton of money. Some people have been laid off. They don't have all this money. And then you're getting an ask. And by the way, I know what the next ask is. It has nothing to do with this city, but it does, not the city government. But the proposal is to tear down Seabrook Intermediate and rebuild it for, hold on to this, $100 million. Oh boy, that coming out of your pocket. So anyway, the point is, people are just keep asking to reach in your pocket and take your money. Well, my belief is, and I went to Bay Elementary, Seabrook Intermediate, and Clear Lake High School, and I was taught, hey, it's their money. Don't put your hands in their pocket. I strongly believe that if you earn it, you need to keep it, not let the government take it from you for some other project. But that's me. So maybe my proposal is, let's give the police raises and let's give them better benefits and see how things go for a while. I think that might work, and that's a lot cheaper than $15 million.
What's your name? Joe McCall.
Joe McCall.
Go ahead.
I'm Amy Perella, Amy Samron. I'm married to Josh. I say a lot on Facebook. I also try and communicate as much as possible with everybody. So I implore you, Gail, you're in charge of it. Please, please disseminate this information prior to, give us weeks, give us however long in advance to get this information out. I know you sent out mailers, but a lot of people, I'm sure, just threw them away. She's shaking her head because she probably didn't even see it. So a lot of people are on social media. You just barely put that thing out today, and people had no notice. There were people who were saying, I didn't even know about this. There's one coming up. Okay, so they can go to that one. But my only thing is, I implore you, please help us disseminate information so that way it puts even you all in a better light that you are being transparent. That is all we want as citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Can I ask a quick question? What are the top 3 priorities for city council and the city manager right now? Does it include this? What are the top 3?
I'm sorry, we didn't hear your question.
What are the top 3 priorities for you guys as a city manager and as a city council? Even the top 2.
I'd like to say mine's economic development and communication.
That's awesome. Does everybody share with that?
I do.
2?
Yeah, I think economic development is been proven that this council has tried to strive for that.
Well, y'all just hired 2 EDC members that had no experience in anything when you had a commercial broker who's experienced in property and development and everything else. My wife's a executive salesperson, and one of the people that you put in is friends with our city manager, and she paints cabinets. So if the EDC is supposed to develop our business and our economy here, I'm just curious how that step made it a priority besides these 2. The other part is red flags in the city. Nothing's being enforced with code. I meant to say this earlier, I apologize. But this is about earning it to be able to do some of this stuff like that, because this is there's no return on it other than benefits within the community for comfort. But if you can't afford to pay for that stuff and you keep putting it on the city, how the hell is this city going to survive? And that's, to me, it just doesn't add up. This is why I was asking for the numbers on how we're trending as far as money incoming without just raising taxes every 2 seconds. That's $20 million between a pool and a police station, and you got one hotel that was sold or bought for $11 million not too long ago is now at $7 million. You got another one that came in and spoke at one of the other meetings that I saw on video, crying his eyes out, saying, "Man, we're struggling." That's a huge economic red flag, and I haven't seen anything from y'all as far as what y'all are doing about that. Then you gave $300,000 to Taco Bell. Is that correct for the Miramar? Well, people don't come here for Taco Bell. That's locals. We might go to Taco Bell and we'll eat at Taco Bell. But people come from outside the area to come here. That's the people we want. So if there's no economic development to support that, I keep saying Old Town Springs, a freaking just a great platform to look at to make it here. If you don't bring in those type of businesses, you don't support it with a good EDC, you just willy-nilly with the picks, and you're not taking it serious about the businesses that are dilapidated. I mean, I've talked about code enforcement. I had talked with Nick about it a little bit, and he said there was a couple things that they couldn't do or it was tough to do. As a citizen, I don't want to hear that. I want to hear, yeah, they look terrible. That guy's a slumlord. Is he in here? If he is, I want you to hear, you're a slumlord. Oh, okay, great. So, hotels failing, dilapidated buildings. The one that is bringing in stuff, bars, you're going after them. Which again, there's some room that they can improve on. But you're going after the one thing that's bringing in city improvement or city outside the city. Tourism, which is why Kima's doing so well. They got plenty of money. They have so much they can argue over it and try and steal funds. But those are red flags. And again, as a city manager, I want you doing the best you can as a city manager, not as overlooking the EDC. If you have that much time to go also be over at the EDC, I don't think you're spending enough time on the city management stuff. We got a $2 million windfall coming off the apartments that are something with the HUD, correct? It's a $2 million windfall. So we're $20 million that we want from y'all. We're losing $2 million because we didn't identify that this program was coming into effect in our area. All the apartments are going to negate their taxes. Our hotels are failing. We're attacking businesses that are bringing outsiders in. You're not listening to commercial brokers, commercial lenders, bankers. I do have a report, but I'm gonna replete. Buddy Hammond actually had asked me to do an EDC report, and I've been working on it and making sure that the stuff I talk about is actually fact, because I don't want to put out things that are not true. But everything I've seen just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. So I'm going to release that publicly. I'm not going to release it just to EDC, and it is coming. So if we have all those things, why are we even talking about this police station again? Crime's 4.1 compared to Kima. You know, they're at 2 point something. They have a ton more people and a ton more people coming through crime. So I want them to earn it, and I want to support them. But at the same time, again, you look at comparisons, you look at the priorities, and none of you could even tell me what your priorities were. I just asked for 2. These are the only ones who came up with priorities. My city manager should have tons written down. This should be tattooed on you. So all I'm saying is we need to get our priorities straight, because it's just like when you look at a poor guy over here and a wealthy, successful guy over here. Typically, not always, this person's spending money on Mercedes that he can't afford, a big screen TV, the best telephone he can get. Those are all wants and needs and things, but that's not a priority. Whereas this guy's putting priorities first. My family, my income, can I afford to pay for those things? That's how we should be with only 13,000 people. So please take that into consideration when you guys get together again, that you guys need to have a priority. You should have at least 2 top things, and you should be addressing those things before you address any of this. Because if we don't have a strong economy, and we don't, that stuff's just going to wear on us more, and you're going to lose people, or we're going to get bought out by another city. I mean, we can get taken over by another city. So, please.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Just as a comment regarding the location that was not brought up, the land that the city owns over by Ed White is, if the police station does not go there and it goes at 146, or it doesn't go at all, that land is then subject for development. I'm not saying this council will develop it, but this council cannot hold future councils to any restrictions. So that would be a risk that you'll be leaving it there. And as to what can go there, you'd have to ask the future council. I watched the city evolve for 30 years, and there are things that I thought would never happen, did, and it continues to evolve. So there could be an apartment complex going in there. And yes, I understand the concern about having a police station by a school, but ours has been here next to Bay Elementary for 50 years. And I'm not aware of one issue or complaint that location has caused. But again, the decision is yours, the voters, not us. That's why we're bringing it to you. Trying to give you the facts as best we know them, and it's up to you. And as far as PD, and I would really encourage you to go take a look at it. It does need some help. And as Gail was talking about, we get an elevated build on next door. Yeah, and we got to have the boats for the folks to get there when you have 4 feet of water around, which we experienced during Ike. So again, we just want you to have the facts as best we know them. We'll answer any questions as best we can. It's your decision, but make an informed decision, not an emotional decision.
Have we at all looked at renovation of this building and proposed renovation of the current police station?
I haven't heard of any. It's not been
Is
talked
there a
about.
reason why we could not renovate for $5 to $7 million, much smaller, into renovating this building? You're saying flood? So flood at this building was only for how long during Ike? During Harvey, people sat for days with floods. So
Yes.
there's kind of a,
I understand.
there's no way to tell there, correct?
No, I understand.
That's an
And-
if and if. It's a huge variable on that.
Right, and
But
it's,
have we at all looked at this building to renovate it?
I'll let Gail respond to that.
So the goal was to try to get it out of the floodplain, and the access, if we were, I'm sorry?
But that's a floodplain over there. So we're talking floodplain to floodplain.
So the higher velocity zone in here, what we experienced during Ike was what we started with, and what we experienced with having the equipment in this area, and where we would locate and invest.
My house is older than this building in here. So you're telling me about a higher velocity zone, my house is still here, built in 1978.
And closer to the bay.
And closer to the bay. So
To answer your original question, no, we haven't done a full assessment on what the cost would be here, because we were just trying to be smart with looking at a location that would be a 50 to 100-year location for the future, so.
I mean, I'd like to see the proposal of possibly redoing this building too. I mean, why, if we're looking at 2 different locations already, and we're looking at a location that is 2.8 million, so dumping money into something, why not look at the possibility of renovating this then? Why isn't there an assessment on that? For all the money that we've already spent, and twice now, why can't we do an assessment on that one?
Your
Hey,
feedback,
maybe I
think,
can
will be-
answer this. Gail, didn't we say something that there's still an existing bond on this building? I thought there was still like some leftover money on a bond on this building. Is that correct or incorrect?
No, this building's paid off.
Well, okay. Well, what I remember hearing back in 2017 or 18 was there was an existing bond on this building. There was some leftover money, and that prevented us from then like adding on or something like that to this building. Didn't I hear that? Sean, that's not correct?
No.
So I wonder what building we were talking about then, because it was, I didn't make this up out of thin air. I mean, this was talked about, that there was some type of bond that kept us from doing something to this building. Because we have a big L right here, this big open section. I never understood why we did that. I was like, why didn't we fill that in? Why isn't that part of the building? I think that solves a lot, because you could put the police station above, so then it would never flood, because it's not going to flood on the second story there. But that's something maybe to look at. I don't know how much that would be to square that in and make a lot more room here. But another thing too, I think back in the 90s, might have been in the late 80s, where Task is now, that used to be HL&P, when they moved out, I thought they offered that building to this city, but the city turned it down. I've been told that. I think that's true, but they said they didn't want to use it, but that building's fine. So, but Task owns it now. We're not going to get that, but so there's been some decisions made in the city that I kind of don't understand. Some I do and some I don't, but that's kind of the way it goes.
Anyone else?
Well, then I guess I suggest that we look into, without spending a ton of money, what it would take to renovate this, because I think that's what I'm hearing from the people is they don't really want to spend 15 million on a new police station in another flood zone, yet you could build something possibly here or renovate this and make it better. So that's something to look at. It could be a lot cheaper. So I think that's what I'm hearing from the people.
If it was renovated 50% or more, that would have to go to the new FEMA flood height, right? What if we had a new building that didn't touch this building, but we still have the footprint of it at the new height?
I think if we looked at doing something on this site, it would need to be above, way above. So we would need additional parking. We'd probably give up the fact of if we can't relocate all of our police cars and equipment to, say, Public Works or another higher ground, we kept office space in the air. It would just be another architectural, study that we'd have to look at, but.
Okay.
Well, one more thing. I talked to the chief about this last night. It was just a suggestion because people have said, well, if you're bitching about it, why don't you have a solution? I agree with that. So I said, other police stations have what they call precincts. Houston's got a whole bunch of them. So I said, and not me coming up with the number, I said to the chief, 2 or 3, I go, but in the end, you decide how many you should do and put 2 or 3 people, police, over at Public Works. Whatever you think that number should be. Put 2 or 3, whatever, again, he thinks that number should be, over at the existing fire station. And then they work out of there. That alleviates some crowding. I also suggested putting in a Connex box right over here at this parking with this covered area where the police cars are. And he said, well, that box would have to be air conditioned. I understand. But that way you can take a lot of the evidence out of this evidence room, put it in that box, stays there. If you go in there and see that there's a yellow kayak in that building, a kayak, that takes up a ton of room. But if it's in that box, it's out of there. But you could put a lot of the evidence in an air-conditioned box over here, which is very cheap. You'd still have to, air condition. I'm sure you have the electricity over there. So then that alleviates a lot. So at least it's temporary. It alleviates some of the room issues over here, and it gets that evidence room cleaned out. That's a suggestion. I don't know how feasible it is. I think it's feasible. I don't know if they really want that, but it's something. So, but that's something that could be considered.
Just a little bit of clarification on the difference in the flood zones. Yes, there is some flood zone on the lakeside site, but to speak more to a lot of these questions about why we're not looking to expand the footprint of this building is that here in Old Seabrook, the average ground level is around 9 to 10 foot or lower as we move closer to the bay. With that said, again, we're at 12 and a half feet standing in this building. So we almost have a 2 or greater foot difference. Again, so access to the building or anything around it or any of the other supporting equipment that we have is put at risk by keeping it in this location. The other locations around town, yes, they're minimum flood zones, but the average ground level at Lakeside is between 12 and above 13 feet. All of that area shown in the brown would be above 13 foot. And then the site at Bayport and Meyer Road is actually some of the highest property that we have in the city, and it's at approximately 15 feet. So just a little bit of a clarification. It's that any type of renovation or any type of addition to this facility and all of the things that support it are going into an area that's already at a lower elevation and closer to the bay and more susceptible to those floodwaters at a deeper depth.
Thank you. Okay, well, if there's no more, I invite everybody to take a tour, talk, look at the tables, ask your questions personally to the chief and Gail or any of council, and we appreciate you coming. Thank you very much.